what are some other scenes that you guys think are on par, or maybe better, maybe not as much, but the most emotional scenes that are out there? Dace?
Well, for me, this season just in itself, it's not really like none of these have actually brought me down to tears, but they've gotten me to the point where they go, "Holy crap, that's a lot like what I'm going through right now," or "Holy crap, I've had that happen," and blah blah blah, all that, et cetera, et cetera. But this season alone, almost every episode, I'm laughing, enjoying, and then like the last 5 minutes, it's like, oh, I'm feeling emotions. I don't like what the heck's going on. And most of them usually resonate when it's Ted and Robin interacting, because we've all been in a situation like that before, where you've poured your heart into someone, but they don't exactly accept it or give the same back, and here you always have that hope, and she seems to crush it every single time.
Jamie, any scenes that come to your mind with you?
Not in particular. I guess for me, I guess it was also similar whenever I saw Ted and Robin interacting, and like Ted, or just in general when Ted's pouring out his heart to someone and it just not getting reciprocated. For whatever reason, it was always good timing because I would always be going through something very similar at the time, or something similar had just happened maybe the month or two before, and to kind of see it in Ted's perspective kind of helped me see my situation in like different eyes, and that would always resonate with me. This show was probably one of the first shows since Full House to ever really bring me to tears. Like I said, I can't really think of any episodes off the top of my head because there's just so many.
Maybe it's just Bob Saget being in the show.
I was gonna say that.
I don't know. I could always get into conversations about Full House. I don't know, but I don't know. It's always with Ted that always gets me. There's just something about him that I always want to cry for him half the time. Just see him go through so many things throughout the entire show, and I'm like, oh, this poor guy. I think also when we see a breakthrough with Barney sometimes, because his character was built like, I can withstand almost anything when you see him, or like, what was the episode when, I think something with his dad, when he finds out about something about his dad being just normal, I think was also like a episode that resonated with me. I don't know.
When he does the thing with the basketball net?
Yeah. That one. That thing, I think that episode showed a lot of Barney's like emotional side, and I thought that was also, I like seeing Barney's emotional side whenever throughout the show, because it's just like, it's always heartbreaking. I'm like, oh god. So I don't know. I just think NPH is just an awesome actor when it comes to that sort of thing, though.
That's a great scene. I love that scene. And the honesty in that line, too. I mean, we were talking earlier about the honesty behind a lot of the characters, where he just says, if you could have been a boring, suburban, normal dad, why couldn't you have been that for me? And that right there tells you immediately what has been behind Barney in his mind for, I think he's supposed to be like 33, 34 at that time.
Yeah, and I love that line. That scene doesn't bring me to tears, but every time I see that episode, that line just hits me hard. I mean, I have a great relationship with my dad, so it's not that I relate to that feeling, but it's just he sells it so well. You can just feel that emotion behind it.
Well, Ronnie, is there any other scenes that pop up when you're thinking of emotional scenes that really hit you?
I really like the end of Symphony of Illumination back in Season 7, where Ted's trying to comfort Robin. So he took all the Christmas lights and decorated the apartment. And for here, it was all just because he thought that Robin couldn't be a professional pole vaulter?
Yeah.
when she really couldn't have kids. I just really, really love that scene. And also, we had mentioned it, but the end of Time Travelers from Season 8, Ted's big emotional speech to the mother about how if he could just have those extra 45 days, he would love that. That scene gets me too. I've seen that episode a few times now. and I just really loved that.
Robert, what about you?
I would say not so much the episode where you find out Marshall's father died, but definitely the funeral. When they're all outside in the snow, and Marshall's talking about his dad, that scene gets me more than any other on the show, just because it makes me think, well, what would I do if I actually lost my dad? You know, everyone just kind of sits there and thinks about it for a second, and you are left with that moment. And then in Time Travelers as well, that gets me every time. And Vesuvius, which I'm sure we'll get to.
Oh yeah, we're gonna definitely devote a whole section of Vesuvius. That's gonna be a rough one. When you brought up the scene or the episode afterward when they're doing the funeral, that kind of ties back to what I had mentioned earlier about how my personal feelings are when it comes to having lost my father. When I watched the episode where, Bad News, where his father dies, at that time mine was alive, and that's why it didn't hit me as hard as it does now. But I forgot about actually the episode that comes after that, and when I was rewatching it this time around, and there's the whole discussion about what the last thing you said to your father was, that was really tough for me to get through as well, because it turned out that when my father passed away, just at this time last year, we're almost up at an actual year that he died, I didn't get a chance to talk to him before he did. He was in basically a comatose state for 2-3 weeks or so, and that was something that bothered me so much when that happened. Now I've gone through an entire year, obviously, that time heals all wounds, but coming across that scene and dealing with that was really tough for me to sit through. And we all know that these are, fictional characters and everything, but they're built on such a strong foundation of truth and obviously personal experiences from the writers and the producers and everybody that they draw from, that was a real tough thing for me to get through. So that became a really tough scene for me to watch, and it wasn't originally when I watched the show. Another thing that for some reason got me pretty hard at the time, and it really shouldn't have because it's more comedic scene than anything else, was the episode where they do a little funny thing at the end where they're talking about their future selves, and Marshall is writing a letter to I think it's his 60-year-old self, and says like, oh, when you get a chance, can you send a sign from the future back at this time? And they end up having the free chicken wings or chicken fingers or whatever it was because they were too hot. And you see that there's the time traveling Marshall from the future, and he's like, oh, I didn't send them back for because they were too hot. I just already ate earlier. It's a funny scene, but for some reason that always was kind of like, oh. And it's really stupid. I mean, it's supposed to be a 60-year-old Marshall sending back hot wings. So I don't know why that ever really got me, but let's start talking about the time travelers and all that, because this is going to be a huge topic. We'll get into some fun ones afterwards to bring up the spirits, because this is going to be tough. The main theory that's been going around for a long time now is that this is all going to turn out to be a story about how he met the mother because the mother's dead. And I've had arguments with friends of mine about whether or not there's any validity to that, and I've been going for years on the train of, come on, they're not going to do that. No, there's absolutely no way. And Time Travelers comes up, and he's starting to talk about he wants those extra 40 days. And I'm like, why would he want those extra 40 days? Maybe Ted's just, he wants those extra 40 days because she's awesome. That'll justify it in my mind. And then bang, Vesuvius comes. And I almost cried immediately after watching Ted cry, because that was just that moment of realization for me where I was just like, this is going to end up being bad. So if anybody did not catch up for some reason, obviously we're going to spoil this right now, but the scene in Vesuvius that we're all going to be talking about is, of course, Robin's mother showed up at the wedding. Whose mother doesn't show up at their daughter's wedding?
Yeah,
Ugh.
and when Ted broke down, I broke down, like you said. And it just took me a minute to... I didn't want to believe that the mother could possibly be dead. I just refused to register that. And then after the episode ended, I just really thought about it. And actually, Tony, your article about instead of the mother, Ted's mother being the one who could be dead, that's actually something that crossed my mind as well. Because that line, it would kind of make sense. You know, what mother doesn't show up to her daughter's wedding, and then maybe Ted's remembering, maybe something just happened to his mother. But who knows? I mean, the writers are really good about letting us believe one thing, and then totally pulling the rug out from under us and going a different direction.
And not to mention that the mother said, I don't want you to live in your stories. Life only moves forward, and Ted just gets more serious than ever, and it just really makes you think.
Mm-hmm.
And Bob Saget wasn't in that one. That's the only episode he's not in.
Oh, really? He wasn't?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that is very notable that there was no narration from future Ted. It was just pretty much the entire thing was Ted from whatever year that was. I don't remember, but it was that Ted kind of narrating the whole thing.
Oh, I didn't even catch that.
Yeah, so that part of the story isn't told to the children.
Oh, man, that's going to add another element to that. I didn't even think about that. Wow.
I didn't even pick up on that, to be completely honest.
But now if you go back and watch that episode, you'll think, well, damn, he's not in this.
Now if we go back, we're going to find out that it's counting down throughout the whole episode. We're going to be like, son of a bitch, we didn't even think of that either. Dace, what do you think about the theory? Is the mother dead, or is it some kind of a backup, like my escapism of, no, Ted's mother died and didn't get to see his sister Heather's wedding, and that's why, come on, believe it that instead.
Oh, she totally kicked the bucket. I mean, who's going to sit their kids down and say, hey, I'm going to tell you a story about your mother, and that mother never interjecting once in 9 years?
Well, it doesn't take them 9 years to tell a story.
Feels like it.
But
seriously,
go ahead.
Sorry, it's like, seriously, how can a husband sit there and tell an entire story about the mother, like how he met the mother, and not once, like, get yelled at for some of the shit he told them? Like, he goes on, like, elaborate, the Barney and the streak. Like, he tells those kind of stories, and yet no interjection from the mother, from the future.
Maybe she's out at the store or something. But my
that's how
thought
the
is,
show ends. She just comes back with a bag of groceries, and she's like, so what have you been up to? And they're like, Dad's boring us. It's just like, I like that story. It just ends.
But see, if the mother is actually dead, I feel like with how good they are with the continuity, it's really insensitive for the kids to react that way at the beginning of the story. Oh, you're going to tell us a story about our dead mom? We don't want to hear this. Can we leave?
Yeah.
And Ted seems a little bit too happy when he's telling the story, too.
It's just him getting stuck in the past. I mean, I tell stories about what I've done in the past, and it makes me smile.
Yeah, but are you telling them about, like, somebody who died?
I died a little bit when some of these things happened.
Touche. But yeah, that is really insensitive if the kids are just kind of like, ugh, Dad's yakking on about our dead mom. Like, dude, she died like 2 days ago. Get over it, Dad.
Move on already. God.
I'm really hoping that it is some kind of a red herring, and that it's not something that actually points to that. There's one thing that's making me hold out a lot of hope, and I didn't think about this when the episode aired, but looking back, and I didn't rewatch season 9 on this marathon that I did, but I did just check up a couple clips for the hell of it. There is a scene from this season where Ted's doing the crossword puzzle, and they show him with the mother for a year later when he brings her back, and he's saying, you know, when I was sitting here at this table a year ago, I said 1 year from now I would bring her back, and, oh, well, you didn't meet me yet. Yeah, but I knew that I would, and whatever. And when he's doing the crossword puzzle, he goes, Vesuvius. Nah, wait, that doesn't fit.
Huh.
Oh, look at you picking out things.
Right. On a second time of watching it as well. Never on the first one. Not good enough for that. But so that's maybe a little clue that they're throwing something out on the episode of Vesuvius to make people think one thing, and it's going to turn out to be something else. And the big theory that I'm hearing that I'm starting to buy into for an alternative is that scene in Vesuvius takes place in 2024, and he's telling the story to the kids in 2030. So 6 years have passed by. That's more than enough time for, things to get worse. But it's also time for things to get better. And I've been hearing a lot of people saying, what if she has a terminal illness in 2024 when they're doing this whole talk about, the mothers and daughters at weddings and stuff. But in the next 6 years, she gets better. Maybe like they find out that she has cancer, and in the 6 years she goes through chemotherapy, and they obviously flash back to this in the next episode. They can't just leave that loose thread hanging. And, she's gotten a little bit better, and now they're just celebrating the fact that the cancer is gone or something, and that's why he's telling the story. I think that could play into it.
They've got a very long hour ahead of them if that's what they're going to do.
They're just going to cram it all in. They're just gonna do lots of flash forwards and flashbacks and just be like, remember this? It was that. And the pineapple theory, this is what happened. Like,
that would be the entire hour.
Right.
We find out she was reincarnated as a pineapple, and the entire time that's what it was. Symbolism at its finest.
Right? Pineapples are yellow.
My guardian pineapple.
Someone is going to hear this and run with this, and like an article is going to blow up and trending on Facebook. Pineapple is the mother.
The pineapple incident. Well, she was out in the rain, and her yellow umbrella, it wrapped itself around her and somehow threw her back in time as a pineapple.
Ted finally got tired of the bitches and wet it up with a pineapple.
It's going to turn out to be like Castaway, where he's talking to Wilson. he's really just adopted these two kids, and he's talking to a pineapple all the time. So, this is your mother. Doesn't she look pretty today?
Nah, the entire time he was in a padded room just talking to, like, chairs.
That would explain why she doesn't have a name.
None of these stories are true. Look at Barney. He's not a real person.
He didn't really
Canada doesn't exist. I'm going wild. Gotta reel me back in.
I'm going to reel that back in with something that was just brought up, though. The mother's name. She's still, we're one episode past what we should have known, as far as I was concerned. I thought we were going to know the last part of this episode that just ended, and we still don't know her name.
But we have Blah Blah's name.
Well, we figured out Blah Blah's name. He better not be not remembering his mother's their mother's name. Let me tell you a story about how I met your mother. What was her name?
Penelope, because it sounds like pineapple.
Well, that's Penny is the daughter's name.
Ah, damn it.
So she might be a Penelope.
And Luke is the son.
Yeah, so they didn't quite get Luke and Leia.
I mean, at least she gave him half of it.
Yeah. Well, that's actually something that people are thinking, maybe that her name is Leia.
That's what Brett said when I talked to him about it. He's dead set on it being Leia.
That'd be really strange.
For the people that are following and paying attention to all the little details and stuff, and I didn't for this one as well, somebody else pointed it out to me. The episode How Your Mother Met Me, and they follow her around, there's a birthday cake, and her name is cut off of it, but it looks like it ends with a Y. So when they had that episode Daisy that was coming out, everybody was like, oh my god, Daisy's going to be her name, and everybody forgot about the fact that they could just introduce a kid.
Yeah, when I first read the episode listing, I thought, okay, Daisy's her name. Like,
it seems like it would have fit.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a different theory, and I'll mention that when everybody else goes. But Dace, if you have to pick what her name is, what do you think it's going to be?
Shakira.
Way to go with the obvious one, Dace.
I know, right? She's got the Hips that don't lie. I'm out. I don't know what her name is.
Robert, what do you think?
It's going to be Robin with a Y.
I've heard that quite a bit, actually, yeah. Jamie?
I've heard the Robin one with the Y too. I really, off the top of my head, I can't really think of any names. Maybe it's something like Allie. I'm not really quite sure.
Ronnie?
I really don't know. It's kind of like the pineapple incident for me, where I don't want to speculate. I just want to wait and see what we get, because no matter what, there will be some people who are like, oh, that's a perfect name. It makes complete sense. There will be other people who are just like, what the hell? Like, that's an awful name. That makes no sense. So no matter what, people are either gonna love the choice or hate the choice. I feel like when Kristen Melody was cast and when she was revealed at the end of season 8. Most people I know loved her, but you see people online who weren't crazy about her.
There's two things that I think might play into here. One of them is when he says to a hooker in one of the episodes, well, not a hooker, a stripper. I should clarify between the two of them in case there's anybody listening. He is at the strip club, and she introduces herself, and she says, I don't know, Jasmine or something like that. And he's like, I'm Ted. And she goes, actually, I'm really Tracy. And he says, I'm still Ted. And he ends that episode with, and that kid's is how I met your mother. And they go, what? So they believe that. And he goes, oh, I'm just kidding. That's not true. So if that's the case, maybe her name's Tracy. And he's telling the story. So he's telling the story, and it's like, hi, but actually my name is Tracy. And that's why they go, wait, what? Because they know, obviously, what their mother's name is by now. Unless he's really that bad of a storyteller and he still hasn't told them over these years. I'm thinking Kimberly, though. And the main reason for that, which I didn't think of until I rewatched these episodes, is pretty early on, he says to, I think it's Marshall, that he's going through a list of things that he really likes about women and, different things that his future wife should do and have and personality traits and all that. And he mentions about she should play bass in a band. And whoever it is, Marshall or Barney, I think it's Marshall, says, like Kim so-and-so from whatever the band is. And he's like, yeah. And then Marshall says, or Kim whatever from, names another band, and he goes, any Kim from any band. So Kimberly does end with a Y, long enough to fit on that cake.
And she is in Super Freakonomics, so I mean, these are possibilities.
I could see her being pretty much any name at this point. Maybe not Shakira, but...
Damn it! I'm not watching. I'm out.
But I'm definitely going with Kimberly. I'm going to bet the house on that one. And if it turns out to be something else, I'll be fine with it. Because I was really on the skeptical wagon before they introduced who actually, was going to play the mother. And that one shot at the end, when they showed her, I immediately was just like, they got it. I don't care. Anything that they do on this show, I'm just going to believe it from now. Because the big thing that I was worried about, they got it perfect. She's totally a mix between Robin and Lily, which is what I was kind of hoping for.
You think they were casting for a while, or do you think they knew who they wanted and they just took it?
I don't think that they knew too far ahead of time. Maybe like 2 or 3 seasons before they cast her. But you got to figure she probably was really young when it started. I don't know how old she is now, but she doesn't look that old to me right now.
Isn't she like 25?
She might be.
I'm just saying that because I'm hoping she's my age.
Well,
she's 26 for you.
She's from our neck of the woods. I think she's from like Cherry Hill.
Right, yeah.
See? I can get some digits. Already 856.